Liberating Structures. This is a session on facilitation techniques that you can use in a variety of contexts. And I'm hoping my technology is going to work today. So I'm just going to go over the agenda. There you go. So we're actually going to jump into a series of activities that you'll experience hands-on. So a fair warning that you will be asked to stand up and talk to people. Unfortunately, the room is not the ideal setting to move around, but do your best to move around and meet different people. So the idea from a learning perspective is it's going to be hands-on so that you can experience what your people that you would be working with will experience. Before starting out, I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and so I always start with a mindful arriving. So I ask you guys to just close your eyes, put your feet on the ground, and just take a deep breath and situate yourself. And just imagine your feet going down to the earth that is below us and to the land that we're on and situated on. And I want to just extend a note of gratitude to the indigenous tribes of this land, the Akosa people, the Acapulco Indian tribe, who were the original settlers of this land. So we're just grateful to be here. Okay, thanks very much. The first activity we're going to do, and this is part of the suite of facilitation techniques that we have, and that I'll be giving out a handout at the end for. This activity is called Impromptu Networking, and you can use it as an icebreaker, as an opener to your activities. Here's how it works. Every activity has a purpose. So the purpose of this activity that you would use is to rapidly share challenges and expectations and build new connections. So if that's your purpose, then this is the activity to use with the people that you work with. Every activity has a structure and a set of instructions, and there is an app that I'm going to tell you about that you can download to give you those instructions. So the steps to do this activity is to stand up and find someone to talk to. In an online setting, this works great in an online Zoom setting, you would go into breakout rooms of 2. So you can do this virtually, or you can do this in person. And the task is to respond to the invitation, respond to the question I'm about to ask you. And so you can jump right into that conversation without the awkwardness of, introducing yourselves, which you're free to do, but we're sort of giving you a task to jump into. And then you have 2 minutes each to respond to the question. And you're going to hear a bell, which I'm going to ring when your time is up. And then we're going to repeat that with different people. So you actually need to find a different person, and you're going to repeat that. So in a virtual setting, you, as a host for something like Zoom, you would reopen those breakout rooms, and you would set a timer for that as well. So it works just as great for that. So the invitation is, what brings you here today, and what's a wow and a wonder, something you're curious about still, that you've had so far at the championship? So I'm going to set a timer, and ready, set, go. Stand up, find a partner. You have 2 minutes each, and I'm going to ring a bell when it's done. Okay, 2 minutes left. Okay, so find a new partner and repeat the same question. So new partner, repeat, and if you don't have a partner, raise your hand and someone will find you. Just someone new, it could be anyone.
Oh, that's really bright. Golly. Okay, that's better. So, Megan, what brings you here today?
Dean's List, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. My team's not here. It's because we didn't personally make it, but it was actually me and my another one of my teammates that got Dean's List. So we're both here together.
From the same team. That's awesome.
So we're both here together.
All right. And what's a while?
I think just how many teams there are and how busy it is and how it's insane.
That is pretty cool. Do you have a wonder as well?
Something I've just been wondering, like leading up to, is how robots are going to differ, different, especially traversal. How different people do traversal.
Okay, 1 more minute. For both of you. Or if you need more time, don't worry. That's okay. Yeah, for all of you.
So just, put forward that you're awesome. So what brings me here today is the Huskies. They won Chairman's, and so this is the first time that they've won Chairman's and able to go to a championship. They won last year, pandemic, and so that's a lot of fun. As a mentor, though, I'm focused on them, like a lot. But these seminars are very cool, and I've been learning a lot of them right here. Oh, very good. There have been some good ones. I have a whole list of all the next ones that I want to go to. So, there's a lot of stuff there. So, all right.
Okay. We're going to try that one more time. So one new person. One more new person. So you have 4 minutes, one more new person to meet. Raise your hand if you can't find anyone. Okay, 1 more minute left. Okay, so you can get back to your seats. Thank you very much for participating and discussing. I know it's not easy for introverts like me to engage, but but that's why we're doing this session. And so my question for you is, what was liberated about that activity and what was structured? The LS just stands for Liberating Structures. Just think about it. What was liberated and what was structured about what we just did? Anyone? Yeah.
I really enjoyed expressing my excitement about being here.
Yeah.
I haven't had that opportunity.
That's awesome. That's great. So you were free to express whatever you liked. Yeah, awesome. And you didn't have to follow that invitation. You could have talked about the weather, Houston, everything. So you had that freedom. That's awesome. And so what was structured about the activity? Yeah.
Having a call sort of like an intro to the conversation, even if it didn't necessarily like stay on that path.
Right.
It gave you like something to talk about, so you weren't just like standing there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes introductions can be awkward, so you want to jump in with something with some purpose to that. Great. Anything else? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And I could have had a countdown timer on the screen. Sometimes people get nervous with that, but you can have a timer. The bell sort of gently brought people back, and you can sort of wrap up your conversation while that bell's ringing. Okay, great. Anything else? And you can think about how you can use that in your context. It's a really simple thing to do. You can repeat it, you can vary it, you can make it 2 minutes. You have 1 minute each, or you can make it 30 seconds each, really quick. What's fascinating about this activity is that it engages everyone and it allows those one-on-one connections to happen. Does anyone know how many individual unique relationships that you can have in this room? Do you know the number of unique relationships that could be possible in this room? So there's about 34 people. So the equation is n times n1 divided by 2. So that is 561 people, connections, unique individual connections that can be made in this room. And so often what happens in presentations and in gatherings or meetings, you never tap into that potential for people to have these serendipitous engagements with each other. Who knows what could happen if one person connects with another and they have a great idea, and that idea leads to something really innovative. You would never know if you don't tap into that. And so that's the power of liberating structures. And so we're going to move on to our next activity. And before that, so here's some ideas. Liberating, you have the freedom to share thoughts. Everyone is included. All voices are heard. And you have this distributed control. You're letting everyone engage. But the structuring is the timing, the grouping, how you group in 2s and 3s, the sequencing of events, whether you repeat that 2 times, 3 times, and whether you, and what invitation you give. And I will be sharing the slides and a bunch of info at the end for that. So we're going to jump into the next activity, which is called a celebrity interview. The purpose is to reconnect the experiences of leaders and experts with the people closest to the challenge at hand. That's the purpose. And really, it's a way to break up the presentation mode, which is what's happening right now. I'm presenting and I'm showing a slide. So we're going to break that up by having a little interview. And I'm going to volunteer as the expert in liberating structures because I've been doing it for a while. And I hate to call myself a celebrity, but I'm just going to do it for this activity. But I need one volunteer to be the interviewer. And you're just going to ask me 3 questions. That's all. And what happens is in that informal interview, it's going to become more like a storytelling session. And we'll see what the engagement is like. But then the audience is asked to think about questions while that interview is going on. And in different contexts, you can have Post-it notes on a board. If we have that, we can have a collaborative document if you're on a virtual setting so that people can post those comments. You can add them to the Zoom chat. And then the interviewer will sort of pull those questions, and you can even have a voting up system for that. So we're going to try that. Who wants to be the interviewer? Anyone? Okay. Why don't you come on up? I'll give you the mic. So you just need to ask me these 2 questions. Yeah.
Wait, that's one and that one? Or, okay. All 3 of them?
Yeah, start at the top. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you're, yeah. Okay.
All right, so your first question. So what are liberating structures?
Yeah. Liberating structures are some simple rules to engage everyone. I love them because they really break up the boring and monotonous meeting. This is an image that I often see at work. I work in a university. And what it is bodies present, but minds absent. I don't know if you've experienced that. So I've experienced that a lot. And you experienced that in school, right? You're probably, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you're sort of, you're on your phone or, if you're teaching other people, if you're teaching little kids, they're distracted and they're not engaged. And so how do we break that up? And that's really what I'm, what I'm curious about. You can make up some other questions.
All right. So how do you use liberating structures in your context?
Okay, yeah. I work at a university, and so in higher education, there's amazing opportunities to engage students in really making sense of what they're thinking about or studying about. Like if you've ever been in a lecture, a 50-minute lecture, I can't focus, and people struggle to focus. So how do we keep them engaged? There's this little diagram I use here. So on one side, often, as professors, you want to use that presentation mode, which is on the far left. It's tightly controlled. I want to control the room. I don't want chaos, and so I'm going to present a PowerPoint, and everyone needs to just listen and be quiet. Beyond that, like in the corporate sector, you have these sort of managed discussions where you go around the room and everyone raises their hand, but not everyone gets engaged. And then you have the status update. And so what happens here is that it's tightly controlled, and you're sort of really dominating the discussion with your own agenda. On the other side of the spectrum, you have the brainstorm and the open discussion. So this is also what happens in university with, when a professor or a teacher, have you ever gotten this thing where they say, any questions? And then what happens?
Nobody has a question.
Nobody has a question. Everyone's scared to ask a question, and so no one raises their hand. Only the boldest person, like the most extrovert person, and then maybe they take over the discussion. Has that happened to you? I don't know.
Either they'll ask a question and then they answer the question, and then because they're the only extrovert in the room, it's just like really awkward after.
Exactly, and then you get this silence and this dead. Yeah. So the open discussion doesn't work because it doesn't engage everyone. So you have these 2 spectrums, and so in answer to your question, liberating structures sort of it falls in the middle. Is right in the middle of those 2, where it's it's not chaos and it's not tightly controlled. It's sort of right in the middle there. Yeah.
All right, so for your last question, what are you most excited about?
I am an introvert, and so I generally don't like public speaking, but I love this idea of everyone in the room being empowered to get engaged. I love this idea of sparking innovation, sparking new ideas. And I also like the idea that we can take, there could be a short lecture, there could be something that we want to learn, but then we're able to process it. We're able to think about it and articulate it and talk about it, right? Because we often learn from just talking about it, social learning. And so I'm excited to empower people and to sort of help them get engaged. Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting me interview you.
Awesome, great. And you can ask the audience if they have any questions. You can.
Audience, does anyone have any questions?
For teenagers who tend to not take things seriously, how do you get them to take these sort of activities seriously and actually utilize the framework that you're giving them?
Yeah. So I do this by riffing, like changing up the activity. So I'll make it much shorter. So I'll give them like 30 seconds. You've got 30 seconds to talk, because they really don't want to talk a lot. I'll also just turn that question into a really wacky question, like, what's, I don't know, just extremes, like what's the craziest thing you've ever done, something like that. So it's the type of question that you can ask, and then you can shorten that if they're like, oh, what am I going to do for 5 minutes, right? Just shorten that up.
I'm not technically in the audience, but I have a follow-up question for you. Yeah. So I see that you have a ribbon that says First Senior Mentor. So how do you take liberating structures into mentoring within First?
Great question. Awesome. I work with volunteers. I work with teams, and I work with people who are organizing events. And so one thing I've done with like a team is that even if the team of like 6 to 10 people, you can still get that same syndrome of one person talking, like the coach is just talking over everyone and everyone's just disengaged. And so even with a coach in a small team, as long as you have a minimum 4 people, you can do these activities and engage everyone. So you still, you can still, even with small groups, you can do that, but you can also do it with very large groups. Like with volunteers, like really asking them, why are you here? What do you really want to achieve? Really getting them to buy in and really understand their purpose and role. That's a great activity to do there too.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any more questions from the audience?
So in terms of robotics, do you see this as more of like a team building exercise, or do you think it's actually more practical to say, okay, we're going to design a robot, you're going to use it for like a practical solution, something to like to problem solve something?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. What I'll show you is there's so in Liberating Structures you actually have 33 plus different activities that all have different purposes. And we're just doing maybe three or four of them today. One great, there's a few of them that really help with like planning, strategy, really going into, okay, what do we need to change and transform? If there's one right here called Purpose to Practice, where you go through what is our purpose, what are the principles that we'll use as a team to achieve our purpose, who's involved, what's that structure of the team, and then what are our practices? What are we going to do to achieve our goal? So it's helping people walk through those steps in a really organized way. So that's just one activity. Eco-cycle planning is great for understanding what do we need to innovate on and what do we need to sort of creatively destroy? What do we need to blow up to make something new? So I don't have time to cover all of these, but these are some of the things that you can use for that.
I had a question over here.
Okay. Just one more question.
Wait. Oh.
I had a quick question. Are these like common? Like, could I just find these if I like Googled the name of them and then it'd be like, it would show you at least a similar example of the game?
Some of them are Googleable. What Liberating Structures does is put them in a package, and everyone has the same format. So I'll show you that. Every activity will have every activity will have these qualities to them. They're inclusive, multi-scale, meaning you can use them with small and large groups. They're meant to be fun. They're meant to be results focused, and they don't need to have an expert leading this. And each one has that same structure. Make an invitation, distribute participation, configure the groups or breakout rooms, and then arrange the space. So in the app and in the website, it's actually going to show you this kind of structure. So you're going to get these 5 steps. So just helpful. You could Google it, and there are some of these activities are findable in different websites. But what's great is that in Liberating Structures, you have the app, you have the website, there's a book, there's flashcards. It really helps you just structure them well. And you're going to have to, it was originally meant for the corporate sector and the health sector, but you can definitely adapt them to use. And again, I'm going to give you a handout with all of this information. So thanks a lot. We got to move on. What was your name? Jay.
Jay.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. Give a hand to Jay. Okay. And what's great is that you're free to reuse them. There's no commercial, there's no one's making money off of them. You're free to reuse and adapt. And so we're going to do one more quick activity. And this one you can take with you and adapt. It's very helpful in any context. I use this to really get high quality feedback from any group. Because it helps people think. So the purpose of this one is to engage everyone simultaneously in generating questions, ideas, and suggestions. And this one you can definitely use in your robotics team. The way it works is you give everyone 1 minute alone to think about something, 2 minutes in pairs to discuss what they just thought about, 4 minutes in groups of 4 if you have a large group, to discuss something, what do we have in common with our ideas, and then you pull that from everyone. The 1 minute alone is really crucial, especially for introverts, because if you're like me, you don't like to be jumping into a conversation with someone you don't know, or having to articulate your thoughts right away. You sort of need that silence to process your thoughts. And so there's variations of this. You can make it 30 seconds alone. You can make it 2 minutes alone. You can vary the timing. But when you go through this process, you're going to get much better feedback. So you can change it up to 2 minutes alone, 3 minutes in pairs. You can vary it up. You're free to do that. And then when you gather the group as a facilitator, you're going to hear from everyone in the room. So let's try that. The invitation, we're going to have 10 minutes total. The invitation is in your work or school or volunteering or coaching, mentoring contexts. Where do you sense an opportunity to help engage and include people more, especially in this context where we're moving out of the pandemic, we're moving into more in person. And what is your biggest hope and deepest worry in this regard? So I'm going to give you just about a minute and a half to think about it. So we'll just be in silence for a minute. And you can write this down if you have a journal. You just think about it or type something on your phone. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. Find a partner, just one other person. So the two of you just discuss what you just talked about. So you have 2 minutes. Ready, set, go. And you can raise your hand if you need someone to talk to. You're free to stand and walk around. Just try not to block the. If you can just not be in the projection. Can you move to this? Okay, just 1 more minute in pairs. Okay, so I invite you to get into groups of 4 and come up with something you'd want to share with the whole group or something in common that you have. So get into groups of 4, and if you need a pair, just raise your hand. So find another pair, and you might have to move around. So groups of 4, and you're just discussing what you just talked about. Yeah, 5 is okay. You can crash a group of. Yeah. You can just listen in here. What? Or you can split up. Yeah. Okay, you have about 2 minutes left. Okay, maybe that's not enough time, but just for the sake of time, if you can get back to your seats. Thank you for sharing and discussing. And here's where, as a facilitator, you're going to gather everyone together and just hear those thoughts. So what's something amazing that you heard in those discussions? Anything you're dying to share with the whole group? Or something, an insight that you had? Yes.
Well, during the pandemic, everything sort of slowed down. Like, we were all sort of forced to close off like our outreach and stuff. But like, due to with the pandemic like slowing down and things starting to open back up again, we can start to build like new relationships with each other and other teams and businesses, sponsors, and put all these new things together. And we also can build new relationships, because it was almost like the pandemic wiped clean the slate. So we just gotta work and build upon our relationships. We got an opportunity to do this, so let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, it's sort of this idea of you're planting a seed, right? We're in this sort of growth stage, or in this seed stage, and just new opportunities. Great. Anyone else would like to share? Yeah.
So one major thing that we were talking about is, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do outreach and recruiting. So a lot of our team is seniors now. So the seniors are going to move on to graduate, and we're going to be left without people that have a lot of experience in robotics, and just like generally not have as big of a team. So next year it's going to be like a lot more important to like get into advertising robotics and recruiting people, starting workshops like in middle schools, so like graduating 8th graders like are aware of robotics, just because like so many teams with the graduating seniors are going to like be left without, you know, like a pretty substantial part of the team. So it's going to be like a major challenge.
Yeah, so that's your deepest worry, and that's an interesting thing. There's this sort of 2-year gap where you're losing all that expertise, and it's going out the door. What are the opportunities? Maybe we need to bring them back from university to come in and just share, you know, how do we not lose all that experience and tap into that? Yeah.
Our group was talking exactly about that, and about tapping into your alumni network for your teams and really reaching out to them and sort of reinvigorating that passion and that inspiration to come back and give back to your teams, but also documenting all the things, all the wisdom right now, and really getting it in that most pure form so that you have it moving forward.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, capturing the wisdom of the group and not letting it escape. Jay?
I've heard here today, obviously, that a lot of people are having the similar issue when it comes to recruitment, like for next year, because there will be so many people graduating. And so I think with like liberating structures, it'll be a great tool to use when it comes to finding ways to show everyone that everyone is included in first teams, and that you don't just have to be a certain type of person in order to be on the team, that there's a place for everyone and there is a purpose for everyone on the team. And that'll be great in helping people trying to recruit, whether it be freshmen or sophomores, like just getting more people on teams in general.
Awesome. Great comment. One here.
Something that's very similar and most people can relate to is getting team members to participate and not sit around. Our team has had that issue. And after the pandemic, we started with a system that was similar to what we used before. And we found that it just doesn't quite work because we had that issue with people sitting around not doing their jobs or sitting around because they didn't think they had anything to do. So I came here to try and figure out how do we get more people involved and not sitting around on their phones and actually doing stuff for the team.
Great point. Yeah, how do you get those people engaged? And it's all about that, going back to purpose and really listening and finding out those talents. Like Jay was saying, everyone included, everyone has a unique thing to share. One more comment. Anyone else want to share? What you can do, like in this event, like it sounds like there's a lot of discussion about how do we keep those teams going, the momentum. As a facilitator, what you can do if you had a group like this, you can move into maybe a bit more of a strategizing session where we actually get down to some tactical decisions where as a group, we're gonna really decide on some things to do next. So there's some activities to do right after this. There's an activity called 15% solutions. Like what can you do right now with no more extra time, energy, or authority to make one step forward in achieving your goals? So we can do that activity right now if we had time. We don't have time, but what I was going to do if we had another 10 minutes, what I would end the session with is something called Mad Tea. You would connecting everyone together. What you would do, we can't do it in this room, unfortunately. We can't move the chairs around, but what you could do is you get half the team in a circle in the middle, and then the other half the team in an outer circle facing inside, facing the person in the inner circle. And then you just throw these questions at them every 30 seconds. They have to finish the sentence, and then you rotate the outside people. The outside people rotate around and then ask a new question. So you can come up with questions like, what an insight I gained today is, and you have to finish the sentence. I'm still curious about this thing. And you just get them to share about that. So unfortunately, we run out of time, but thank you everyone for coming. There are handouts at the end of the room. I have an email address on the handout, so if you want the slides for this session, you can get them from me. So thank you everyone. Give yourself a big round of applause. It was great participation. And I have a whole bunch of resources to share with you after. So thank you everyone for sharing, and please leave from this side of the room